This is no ordinary scrap of carpet. Embedded deep within its fibers is a story of intrigue and betrayal that nearly destroyed an organization. Not long ago, my wife and I co-pastored the Wesleyan Church in Abilene, Kansas, which had declined over the years to the point it was being considered a church under development. That means that the district board of leadership had dissolved the congregation's local leadership board due to the dire situation and had appointed specialists to come in, that's us, to make whatever changes were necessary to get it back on track. Our first Sunday there were 17 people present, and that was including the 5 from my family. The building's outer brick was dingy, the yard was unkept, the landscaping was overgrown, and the facility itself reeked of neglect. When the core of the office and sanctuary still looked like the mid-60s when the congregation was doing well during Eisenhower's presidency. Remember, he was from Abilene, so it was a happening place to be then. But to anybody under 40, the facility looked very retro. Over the course of time, we also discovered foundation and water intrusion issues, peeling paint, and obsolete sound and media equipment that had been stored in the hopes that someday maybe somebody could fix it. And no one ever did. We also found what looked like a mud dauber's nest that was growing, but which had actually turned out to be one of 3 active termite colonies that had been chewing away at the foundation structure. This became evident when I leaned a wall hanging against a wall one day, and it fell through, revealing that on several of the downstairs classroom walls, all that remained was the paint. The termites had chewed up all of the sheetrock and much of the 2x4 rib structure. Unfortunately, the situation there spiritually very much paralleled the situation physically. On the outside, it appeared physically sound, maybe a few quirks here and there and some older ways of doing things, but for the most part, it looked solid. But on the inside, much of its foundation was rotting from the core from decades of neglect. But this was nothing compared to the carpet. You see, this carpet piece came from the nursery. Since we have young children, we noticed it right away, and so did some of the other younger families with kids that we started reaching. We knew something was fishy when we noticed the Precious Moments theme painted on the walls in lovely pastel shades, and how starkly it contrasted with this vibrant 60s themed shag carpet in avocado and goldenrod. But we just couldn't put our finger on why the odd combination coexisted. Well, one day I was crawling around on the floor playing with one of my children, who at the time was 5 years old, and I noticed a black powdery wisp come up every so often, and then the floor around it would get just a little bit darker. On closer examination, I discovered that it was a fine black powder that was erupting from cracks in the carpet, and then it would settle like volcanic ash, and the carpet got dirtier. Well, we stopped using the nursery after that, and most of the young families went back and forth between cycles of crying about the condition, laughing about how absurd, and despairing about its implications. Once a year, the city of Abilene has a spring cleanup day, where everything that gets set out by the street gets hauled off for free. You can probably guess what happened. To this day, nobody will actually say who pulled the carpet up or who took it out, but the next day there was a roll of gaudy avocado and goldenrod shag carpet out by the street. It took several days for the younger families to clean up all of the black crumbs and powder. As it turned out, that was the backing material, the padding for the carpet, and it had literally disintegrated into crumbs and a fine powder. A few days later, one of the younger moms found a nice pastel blue area rug, and what a transformation that made. Now it was an inviting and safe and clean nursery. But then came Sunday, and we finally got to the bottom of the mismatch mystery. One of the church's longest-running members, who at age 11 was the daughter of one of the families who helped start the church, was furious. Her vitriol was enough to ignite a blaze, and she demanded to know who was responsible and how on earth could we have done this. Then she even asked us to put it back, which of course was impossible. Of course, no one would admit to it, but in the process we found out the rest of the story. Not long after the church's sanctuary was remodeled in the 60s, this lady's father passed away while she herself was a young mother, so she and her husband gave the carpet as a memorial to her father. That's a common practice in Protestant churches, to give something of hopefully enduring value in memory of someone who has passed on, but rarely does it get so out of hand. And most of the time they'll issue a plaque or record the gift in a book of memorials so that when it does wear out, as all things eventually do, the person's influence can still be remembered and appreciated. Not this time, though. You see, carpets never last long. 5 to 7 years is fairly normal. 10 to 15 years is really a stretch, and only the best last that long. But this particular carpet had been there almost 40 years. Over time, various younger mothers who were new to the congregation had insisted on updating the wall paint, the furnishings, and adding the Precious Moments motif, but no one dared touch the carpet. And in hindsight, Every mother who tried to change the nursery ended up leaving the church within a year or two, often in fear of reprisal. So over the decades that followed, dozens of families came and left the church, and about as many pastors came and left, but nobody messed with the carpet in the nursery. It had become a shrine to the lady's dead father, and though he might well be rolling in his grave over it, it meant all the world to her. And so, like the rest of the building, and likely the spirit within, it continued to deteriorate while they kept up appearances, till somebody who didn't know any better did what ought to have been done 20 years earlier.